But now someone with a sharp set of eyes has noticed perhaps a mistruth in the Oprah interview. Here it is.
She has a blanket that sits across her knees for warmth, and it was chilly. And she was like, Meghan, come on, and put it over my knees as well.
What if I told you the most powerful woman in media now regrets the one interview that defined her career? Imagine this. Oprah Winfrey, queen of the exclusive sit-down, the master of intuition, privately admitting she made the biggest mistake of her broadcasting life. But she didn't say it on stage, or in an interview, or even in a cryptic tweet. It slipped out behind the scenes, one quiet, devastating line about Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. I should have never trusted her. Hold up. This is where it gets insane, because that whisper has now exploded into a Hollywood reckoning no one saw coming. And tonight, we're unpacking the secrets Oprah's been sitting on for nearly 3 years, and the ripple effect that's now changing everything for Meghan Markle.
Was the move about getting away from the UK press, because the press is, is everywhere, or was the move because you weren't getting enough support from the firm?
It was both.
For almost 3 years, Oprah stayed silent. Not a single word about Meghan Markle. Not on red carpets, not in interviews, not even in those casual, off-the-record moments where insiders usually speak freely. This was the woman who Oprah had famously welcomed into her Montecito garden, handed a global platform, and allowed to speak without limits. No time constraints, no hard-hitting questions, no editorial checks. Meghan cried, accused, and reset her narrative before an audience of millions. And Oprah? She let her. The world called it a cultural reset, a landmark interview. But behind that serene exterior, cracks were already starting to show.
Yeah, so this was Meghan's very first outing with the Queen. It happened right after her wedding to Prince Harry, and it was obviously extremely important and a significant occasion because it was her first outing with the monarch.
Even then, insiders whispered that Oprah felt something was off, and now, July 25, we know exactly why she kept her distance and why those cracks have finally burst wide open. According to producers close to that now infamous special, Oprah's doubts began almost immediately after filming Wrapped. She had invited Meghan and Harry to share their truth, but what she witnessed off camera rattled her in ways no one could have predicted. A former Harpo assistant has now revealed that Oprah told her inner circle just days after airing, "This wasn't journalism, this was PR. I handed them the mic and they ran with it." Fact-checkers soon started picking apart inconsistencies. Royal aides quietly leaked damning receipts. Public opinion wobbled. But Oprah, she said nothing. That silence? It wasn't indifference, it was strategy. She doesn't do public regrets unless she has a reason. And now we know that reason was brewing almost from the moment the cameras stopped rolling. You probably think this is where the story ends, Oprah regretting a risky interview and moving on. You're wrong, because what we're about to reveal next shows that this wasn't just another Meghan fallout. This time, it was personal. And what Oprah discovered behind the scenes will change how you see that entire interview forever.
I need to do this for my family. This is not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point, but I've got to do something for my own mental health, for my wife's, and for Archie's as well, because I could see where this was headed.
What most viewers didn't see that night was the subtle shift in Oprah's demeanor, the slight hesitation during certain answers, the unusually long silences she allowed to fill the air. Insiders now say those pauses weren't deference, they were doubt. And it all began with one scene that seemed harmless to millions watching at home. Meghan's chickens, the rustic coop, the quaint wire fencing, the Archie's Chickens sign freshly painted just days before. To the public, it felt authentic, but to Oprah, it felt staged. According to a former CBS affiliate editor, Oprah previewed the final cut 2 days before air, watching it once in silence and then again with rising concern. She reportedly murmured to a producer, "This won't age well." And it wasn't the bombshell racism allegations or the royal titles drama that triggered her discomfort, it was that chicken coop. Because Oprah knew exactly what that carefully curated aesthetic was meant to do, humanize Meghan and Harry. But when she learned the entire set was installed just a week earlier, the fence redone, the coop repainted, she saw the performance for what it was. They don't want transparency, they want control, she allegedly confided. That was the first crack. But that's not even the craziest part. What happened after the cameras stopped rolling is what truly unsettled Oprah.
And she told a story later in her Oprah Winfrey interview in 2021 where she talked about the moment that the Queen was more like a grandma to her because she saw that Meghan may have been cold and put a blanket over her legs as well. And it was it's a small detail and it's a smallish story, but it had significance because it showed the relationship that Meghan had with the Queen. It gave some insight into that.
According to a senior Harpo assistant, as the crew packed up and the lights dimmed, Meghan approached a staffer privately, not to say thank you, but to make a shocking request. "Just make sure I get a look at the final edit. Oprah will understand," she allegedly said. The assistant, stunned, immediately reported it to Harpo's executive producer, who took it straight to Oprah herself. Oprah's response was swift and unflinching. "Absolutely not. This is my platform, not Buckingham's, not Meghan's." No guest, not even world leaders, had ever requested editorial control. But Meghan didn't stop there. That evening, an intermediary followed up on Meghan's behalf, requesting that the final framing align with her truth. And that phrase, her truth, reportedly irritated Oprah more than any public backlash ever could. For decades, Oprah had built her empire around authenticity, around tough, unvarnished interviews that cut through PR spin. And here was Meghan treating the most exclusive interview platform in the world as a controlled PR vehicle, one that she believed she could manage. From that moment forward, Oprah's trust began to erode rapidly. As she quietly distanced herself from Meghan, another blow landed, this time from her closest confidant. Days after the interview aired and social media exploded in support of Meghan, Oprah received a text from her best friend, Gayle King. At first, Gayle simply wrote, "You weren't the only one she worked, just wait." Oprah thought she meant CBS executives, or perhaps a few producers. But then Gayle clarified in a follow-up text. Meghan had pitched her the exact same vision she pitched Oprah, almost word for word, a documentary deal, a 3-part redemption arc featuring Meghan's journey through motherhood, philanthropy, and life beyond the royal crown. Sound familiar? Because according to insiders, Meghan had pitched the idea to Oprah first. But she didn't stop there. The duplicity stunned Oprah. "I thought I was helping her tell her story," she reportedly told her inner circle, but she was helping herself build a brand. From that moment, Oprah's regret became deeply personal. Not just a professional misstep, but a betrayal by someone she thought she understood. You think that's bad? Keep listening, because what Oprah discovered next left her stunned, not just as a journalist, but as a friend.
He didn't want him to be a prince or a princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol, and that he wasn't going to receive security.
What?
It was really hard.
The final blow came from an unexpected place, inside Meghan's own team. An unnamed stylist who worked closely with Meghan during the final fitting for the Oprah interview stepped forward with quiet but damning details. This stylist had no agenda, no book deal, no interviews, no Instagram reveal. She didn't even want her name published, but what she shared with Vanity Fair rattled Oprah to the core. According to this stylist, Meghan was warm and charming on camera, but once filming wrapped and the glam team returned to the holding area, her demeanor completely shifted. "She said it like it was strategy," the stylist recalled. "She literally said, 'Oprah gives credibility, I give the story, that's the trade.'" And then the stylist dropped the detail that reportedly devastated Oprah most. Meghan had laughed at how easy it was to manipulate the atmosphere. "All I had to do was pause and look sad," she allegedly joked. Oprah would fill the silence. For Oprah, a woman whose career was built on creating safe spaces for vulnerability and truth, that revelation hit harder than any public critique ever could. But it gets even messier, because it turns out someone very close to Prince Harry had already tried to warn Oprah before the interview even took place. 3 weeks prior to the taping, Oprah reportedly received a private message, not from a gossip columnist or disgruntled aide, but from a longtime friend of Harry's inner circle, a woman known for staying out of the spotlight entirely. The message was short, respectful, but chilling. "Please tread carefully. Meghan's truth is not the truth. You deserve to know that before you film." At the time, Oprah dismissed it. She had done her homework, she had prepared her questions, and frankly, she wasn't about to cancel what would become one of the most watched interviews of the decade based on a cryptic warning. But after hearing what the stylist revealed and what Gayle King had told her, Oprah admitted privately to her closest team, "I should have asked more questions. I didn't want a takedown, but that's exactly what I enabled." The realization that she had overlooked credible warnings because of her trust in Meghan was reportedly a turning point for Oprah, transforming regret into something far deeper: disillusionment. Hold up, this is where it gets insane. Because as Oprah was processing all of this, she heard one final whisper that sealed her decision to sever ties entirely.
But what has been noticed now from that clip is you can actually see from sort of a more of a bird's eye view the Queen with the blanket on her legs in the car on that day. And it's a little difficult to make out very clearly, but it does look like the Queen only put the blanket on her own lap. And again, it seems like a small detail, but it does speak to the relationship between the two.
After the interview aired, Meghan's team had reportedly been quietly shopping around for round 2, another tell-all, another platform, another round of bombshells. And worse, they were pitching it as Oprah wasn't enough. That sentence alone, according to sources, left Oprah feeling used in the most humiliating way possible. She wasn't just betrayed, she was outmaneuvered. She realized she had been positioned not as a trusted interviewer, but as a stepping stone, a tool to launch Meghan's next act. And it was at that moment, just after 6:00 p.m. one evening, that Oprah picked up the phone. She wasn't calling Meghan, she wasn't calling Harry, she was calling her longtime executive producer. Her voice was reportedly calm but firm. "I want it on the record," she said. "No more Meghan, no more Harry. We're done." When asked what changed, Oprah allegedly replied, almost bitterly, "I opened my platform in good faith. What they brought wasn't transparency, it was a performance." From that moment on, everything changed. Not just for Oprah, but for Meghan Markle's standing in Hollywood itself. What happened next didn't come with headlines or official statements. It came with something far worse: silence. The kind of silence that means more in this town than any scathing press release. Invitations stopped landing in Meghan's inbox. PR teams suddenly forgot to return calls. Producers who had once gushed about Meghan's fresh energy started ghosting her team entirely. One insider at a major streaming platform reportedly put it bluntly, "If Oprah's out, we're out, it's not worth the risk." Hollywood, the same place that had once crowned Meghan as the face of modern royalty, was quietly closing its doors, not with scandal, but with indifference. Because when Oprah Winfrey signals that she no longer trusts someone, the entire ecosystem takes notice, and that ecosystem doesn't forget. But the moment that truly shattered Meghan's carefully constructed public image came weeks later at an A-list Hollywood charity gala, the kind of event where reputation is everything. Meghan arrived expecting to be treated like the headliner, moving confidently through the VIP corridor. But what she encountered stunned even her. 3 A-list actresses, all former acquaintances, turned away when she approached. One reportedly whispered to her assistant, "Tell her I'm not available for photos tonight." And then came the most devastating moment. At her assigned table, Meghan noticed an empty seat next to her. A seat reserved for none other than Viola Davis, but Viola never showed. According to sources, she had quietly requested to be moved after learning Meghan would be seated beside her. Meghan understood exactly what that meant. Behind the scenes, whispers had turned into conversations, and those conversations had crystallized into a reputation she couldn't easily shake. And it wasn't just one awkward evening, it was the beginning of something much larger, a subtle but undeniable unraveling of Meghan's Hollywood narrative.
Look, I was really ashamed to say it at the time, and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry especially, because I know how much loss he's suffered. But I knew that if I didn't say it, that I would do it. And I just didn't want to be alive anymore.
If that's potentially not how it played out, it sort of changes how we view their relationship at that time, which is important.
In the days and weeks following the gala, Meghan reportedly tried everything to regain control. Quiet calls to mutual friends, carefully crafted messages to publicists, even indirect feelers sent to Oprah's team. But the responses were either cold or non-existent. And according to a producer close to Oprah, a final message was relayed through a mutual contact, short, sharp, and impossible to misinterpret. Trust, once broken, doesn't get airtime. That sentence landed harder than any tabloid headline or late-night joke. Because for Meghan, the real blow wasn't the public backlash. She's endured that before. No, the real blow was being cut off from the very system she thought she'd mastered. A system that once celebrated her as a survivor, but now saw her as a strategist who played too many hands and burned the wrong bridge. The fallout from Oprah's quiet but decisive break with Meghan wasn't just personal. It reshaped how the entire entertainment industry viewed her. What had once been an unstoppable rise, from palace to podcast, from royal exile to Montecito mogul, was now grinding to a halt, not with scandal, not with explosive headlines, but with a far deadlier force in Hollywood: irrelevance. PR firms that once fought to represent Meghan began to rethink their alignment. Studios that had quietly courted her brand stopped taking meetings. Streaming platforms that had been eager for a second Markle moment quietly shelved any proposals tied to her name. And it all traced back to one simple truth. When Oprah Winfrey, the queenmaker herself, withdraws her trust, the entire industry takes a step back too. Hollywood doesn't just follow trends, it follows power. And Oprah's power was signaling something very clear. The trust is gone, and with it, the shine. For Meghan, the blow was deeper than most realized. She'd faced criticism before, harsh headlines, online trolling, even rumors of royal disapproval. But this was different. This wasn't loud or public or easy to fight. It was the kind of rejection that you can't spin because it comes in silence, in doors that no longer open, in projects that quietly die in development. Even the friends who once defended her began to step back, wary of being associated with someone now labeled difficult behind the scenes and a master at weaponizing the narrative. And while Meghan tried to salvage the situation, reaching out to mutual contacts, floating new projects, even crafting the occasional flattering soundbite about Oprah, nothing worked. Every effort was met with the same cold wall, no response. And here's the part that most people missed. This wasn't just about Meghan Markle. This was about the unwritten rules of Hollywood itself, about what happens when you burn bridges with one of the most trusted gatekeepers in media history. Oprah's silence was a verdict, one that carried more weight than any exposé or tabloid feature ever could. And that silence, it didn't just freeze Meghan out, it rewrote her entire narrative. Because in this town, when Oprah says, "I should have never trusted her," people listen, and they remember. Meghan Markle, once the face of modern royalty, isn't facing exile or scandal. She's facing something far worse, irrelevance. And in Hollywood, irrelevance isn't just the end of your 15 minutes, it's the end of your influence. So as Meghan faces this new reality, one thing is crystal clear. In an industry built on trust and image, one broken relationship can quietly, completely, and permanently shut every door.